And we are back with another episode of the Boys from the Hood Sports Talk. And I got my boy Courtney back with me again.
Salute.
What's going on with you, man?
Not much, not much. How's everything?
Everything cool, man. We're gonna dive right into this thing, man. We're gonna talk about sports plugs, DMV. They did a top 50 list, but we're just gonna go up to 20 on our list. Talk about it a little bit. But before we get started, let's play the intro. And we're back. Um, I was looking at this list, man. We're gonna start out by I'm gonna read off the top 10 right quick. We got number one, we got St. Francis Academy. Number two, we got Murray. Number three, we got Archbishop Spalding. Number four is Oscar Smith. Number five is the Mather Catholic. Number six is Good Counsel. Number seven is Gonzaga. Number eight, St. John's. Number nine, Phoebus. And 10 is Varina. First of all, where are these schools at? Because I don't know. I keep hearing about St. Francis Academy. They the ones that keep beating IMG, ain't it?
Yeah, St. Francis, excuse me, St. Francis is up in that Baltimore area. Um, Archbishop Spalding. And here's the thing you got to understand. These a lot of the schools you see are actually from what we consider to be the DMV area, right? So,
Right.
what I'm assuming the people over at Sports Plug did was kind of bring in all of the top schools, because when we're talking DMV, we're really only talking Northern Virginia, the District of Columbia, and Maryland, and
Right.
really technically when we're talking Maryland, we're only really talking Montgomery County, PG County, and St. Charles and Charles County.
More
So a little bit of
South of Maryland.
yeah. So just right. Just right. So what this group did was kind of expanded that list, and brought in just some more schools who traditionally play some pretty good football.
Now you know what I was thinking too. I'm sitting here looking at this list, right? And I'm like, you got Varina. That's what they in almost Richmond, right?
Yeah, yeah, they're outside of the city of Richmond.
So I'm wondering, because we got Murray, Norfolk, Phoebus. I wonder, is they covering the whole state of Virginia too?
Well, when I looked at the list, and you go to the next group, what I feel is, and this is heavily DMV centric, which I'm assuming it should be, because that's what they were looking at.
Right.
But I feel like they brought in some of the teams that have been traditional powerhouses, or teams that have risen to that level. So there's some schools that are a little further out than places we definitely wouldn't consider the DMV. If you look at Liberty Christian, that's out in the western part of Virginia. So that's a school. If you look at all these schools, you definitely would not say that's the DMV.
Right. Because
But
it seems like they use the
primarily.
whole state.
Yeah, primarily, the majority of these schools close enough, but a couple of excuse me.
You need some water.
Yes, I do. Early morning, but but the majority of these schools, I mean, kind of hover around the DMV, not necessarily in. But when you're looking at, like I say, when you're looking at Maury, you're looking at Phoebus and Oscar Smith.
Yeah.
Those schools are definitely 757. So
I'm gonna read off. Let me read off these the 11 through 20 real quick.
Mm-hmm.
We got 11. We got St. James. 12. We got Riverdale Baptist. 13. I don't even know how to say
Paul
that.
Tuxet.
Pawtuxet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 14. We got Dunbar, Maryland. 15. We got
McDonough. Yeah.
McDonough. 16. We got Paul the Sixth.
Yep.
What the hell is that?
Paul the Sixth is a private school in Fairfax County.
Damn. 17, we got Liberty Christian Academy. 18, we got
Benedictine.
Benedictine.
Mm-hmm.
19, James Madison. And 20, Dunbar, DC. Man, I'm
Yep.
going to be honest, man. I don't know none of these teams except Liberty Christian, James
Mm-hmm.
Madison, and I heard of Dunbar. Well, where are all the rest of these teams from, man?
Same thing. Primarily hovering around the in that DMV area, right? Paul Tuxet, the Maryland school. Dunbar, Maryland is in is Baltimore. Dunbar, DC is in DC. Like you say, Liberty Christian is out in the western part of Virginia. And then, like I say, Riverdale Baptist, PG County. So so you have if that's the Riverdale Baptist that I'm thinking about, you have the school. This list right here, probably besides Liberty Christian, a little bit more geared toward the DMV, but you still got some schools that are outside that area.
Now, that's what I want to know, man. We came out in 96.
Mm-hmm.
When did all of these Catholic schools and all these Liberty Academies, when did all this stuff start, man? I don't even remember this stuff.
So if you go back to the other screen, I will, I can kind of point some things out. I had the privilege of coaching in Northern Virginia, so I'm familiar with some of these schools. But the Mather Good Counsel, Gonzaga, St. John's.
Where you coach that up there?
So when I coached in Northern Virginia, I coached at I was at West Springfield at first. Then I coached at South County, and then I coached at TC Williams. I did some of the lower levels at TC Williams before I kind of went off and did my own thing.
TC Williams. I don't know if y'all remember TC Williams was from the movie with Denzel Washington.
Yeah, remember the Titans, and if you talk to the guys in the city, they'll tell you that it's that's made for Hollywood. If you talk to the guys in the city, and I had a chance to had a chance to work with some guys who actually were on that team. So I was fortunate enough to meet some people who told me a larger portion of the story. But kind of going back to your point. When you're looking at when you're looking at the Catholic League, it's a very dominant league. If you look at it in DC, and the challenge with that with private schools is and this is why the list can be a little bit misleading. A school like Maury, Oscar Smith, Phoebus. Verina, people can say, oh, well, the kids go to those schools. Yeah, well, there may be a couple of kids that transfer in, but largely the majority of those kids are from the community. Whereas these schools here, those kids are going to be, they're coming from, some of them can come from a great ways away. And that's not to take away anything from them. That's their choice and their option when you have, when you have an opportunity to go play for a school that's going to get you bigger, faster, and stronger, where the coaching may be more a little bit more dedicated. The coaches may be a little bit more dedicated to building the program. You're going to see guys kind of go.
I'm sorry. Got more coaches too.
Well, it's not about. It's not about the quantity as much as it is the quality. But what they do is they make certain that they have staffs that they actually go out and look for their staffs. I could tell you that one of the private schools are not listed up here. Well, actually, one of them that is listed up here, and one of them not. I kind of talked to some years prior. We're talking right now, probably maybe 10, 12 years ago, about some of their job openings. And what you'll see is, they have dedicated programs to how they do. They have regions that they're gonna, they think about recruiting. They have great alumni who contribute to those programs. So you're going to see it. Some of the schools they've kind of come out of nowhere a little bit. Where you don't really they weren't a traditional. When I say DeMatha, Good Counsel, Gonzaga, those are pretty much traditional powerhouses. We've seen them kind of dominate that league for some time. And then you have some other programs coming out, and rightfully so. Those guys are doing a great job of going out and getting kids, and because sports are becoming so centralized now. And so much, so specialized that you're going to have guys who are going to go to schools. And like I say, when we highlight a Phoebus, when we highlight a Moria, Oscar Smith, same thing. Those programs have been traditional powerhouses. We know the rich history of Phoebus. We know how Moria has done a very fine job of building their program in the city of Norfolk. Verona, same thing. Oscar Smith. I mean, we've seen how Oscar Smith over the years has built that program and to stay consistent. So when you're looking at them, those are public schools. Those are public schools. The funds have to be divided a little bit differently. The challenges, if you look at a Phoebus, the challenges of buying state championship rings, is always a challenge every year, and when you have those challenges, it leads to, it leads to just to more, it leads to a lot of infighting in certain spaces. But because you have to find that money. Whereas the private schools, they win. They're gonna go out. They're gonna fundraise. They're gonna do. They're gonna make certain that those kids kind of get the things that they need. So list, just kind of going back to the list, it's kind of compare apples to oranges, because the private schools are at a different advantage than the public schools. Not to say that any of these public schools wouldn't challenge any of those schools. They certainly would. We know that those coaching staffs are never going to back away from any challenge. If you've ever seen them, Maury will travel anywhere to fight anybody. We know Phoebus or Oscar Smith will travel anywhere to fight anybody. But once again, those are the challenges, because you're talking about funding and being able to pay to go play some of these schools. So,
don't teams like St. Francis Academy, don't they stay there, don't they, the kids?
That I'm not certain. I know that more so like DeMatha and Gonzaga, St. John's are more so just they're in the community. So St. John's will pull kids from PG County, Gonzaga, Good Counsel, DeMatha.
They bust them to practice and stuff.
Well, I mean, they find different ways, right? To get guys. There's some may carpool, some may bus, just different ways to kind of get guys there. But primarily they're in they're in those communities, and we know that some of these communities are harder hit. If you're looking at if you look at DC, they're gonna so it's a vast city. But when you're looking at the public schools, I mean, you think about public schools in any major city. You look at Richmond, you look at DC or Baltimore. Those private schools are gonna have a better sell when they're sitting in the class. I mean, sitting in the living room on the couch talking to mom. Hey, you want your son to go to the local school, or you want him to come here? And those moms, some dads, they're gonna say, hey, you know what? Yeah, we want them to go over there because we feel it's safer. And that's unfortunate, because in those schools, you have some great teachers and you have some great coaches who are doing, the best they can with what they have. But, sometimes, to the riches go to the spoils. So, it's kind of like saying, hey, we're doing the best we can at Rutgers, but, Johnny's going to go to Alabama. So, I mean, it's not really the same.
So what do you feel about, how you think about this, the actual order of the list? Looking at it like that, you see Phoebus at 9, you're like, wow. But then you think about these other teams.
Well, so. I will tell you this. the list to me potentially looks like it was put together based on history, right? Based off of what we've seen recently, so that's why, Maury would be number 2, but you're looking at St. Francis, and like you say, they're going down and beating the IMG Academy, which is, a national program, right? St. Francis is now rising to that same level where people won't, they might not go to sunny Florida. They might, come up to the DMV area, come up to, the Baltimore area, right? So, you're seeing, so I can understand why St. Francis, Archbishop Spalding, DeMatha, and Good Counsel, I can see why those schools might be ranked ahead of Phoebus. We here locally are going to always look at a Maury, Oscar Smith, and a Phoebus and say, hey, look, these are the cream of the crop programs. These are the programs that teams aspire to be. However, you're looking at a different animal when you're looking at a St. Francis or DeMatha or Good Counsel. Like I say, we know St. Francis, football wise, has been rising in the ranks. But if we talk about DeMatha or Good Counsel, those schools have been perennial powers. So it's being able to understand how these programs develop, how they run. And their connection to the community. If you know the name Good Counsel, if you know DeMatha, if you know those names, and if you're in DC, you know those names. If you're playing in the rec league programs out there, you know those names. And so it's, where's Johnny going to go? Who's going to be able to get Johnny to their program? So, so it's a lot different. We know that, when you're going to Maury, Oscar Smith, or Phoebus, and the thing about that is those 3 cities are in 3 different areas, but Oscar Smith and Maury are geographically not that far from one another. So, and while there are multiple schools that may be in between, the school zones that may be in between those 2 schools, they still have to go by, public school rules. When we're talking about kids coming to their school, if you look at this list, if you think about it, if we were talking about school, we were going off the past. If you think about it, Hayfield would have been on this list, but when those students left the one school or and transferred into the other, now you don't see that name on this list. Well, they went to Hayfield. They left from a school in Woodbridge in Prince William County. So they transferred out of that school, and like I say, we're talking about coaching. They had a coach who understands this game and understands it very well, and so some people would rather take the chance of going to moving and playing for the guy that they know, rather than stand for somebody that they may not know, or they may not feel as good as that coach. And whether it's right or wrong, or however we choose to view it, those parents are going to make those decisions, and they're going to try to do what they feel is best for their children.
Why not? You know what I'm saying? Why not?
Yeah.
They always say people stacking teams up, because this is something I was thinking about the other day, right? Larry had sent me a clip of Womack when he was playing against Carolina. Did you see that clip?
Yeah, I watched that game. I remember that game.
And the first thing the dude said, we got a true freshman, Antoine Womack. He runs a 4.3 40. I was like, damn. He was 6 feet 220. But back then, all of our players went D1. Well, everybody was going D1 for a period of time. From around, I'm just talking about Peninsula District in itself.
Well, but once again, you got to look at, we're talking close to 30 years, right? So things have changed. A lot of the coaches have gone on to different places. We know that, Coach D has since passed on. We know that Mike Smith has since retired. Just different coaches who are in the area who have affected this game. Robert Jackson, who down in Lansdowne. You got guys who affected this game and who did a great job of being, shepherds for this game. But what has happened is you're dealing with a new generation of coaches who, have a different relationship to the community. The students are different, with social media being what it is, and student athletes being able to promote themselves and those types of things. What you're seeing are the schools or the coaches who have a better understanding of how to market their program. They're going to be a draw. Phoebus is a perennial part. When you go back, Phoebus, when Phoebus first came out, I mean, they were a doormat. Anybody would tell you that. And back in the early 80s and things of that nature, had some great guys and some phenomenal athletes. Your brother was one of them, but it wasn't the Phoebus that today. When we kind of came in and established a little bit of that culture of being in the weight room, on time and not missing practices, going to class, things of that nature.
Not being
that's
high
when you
and drunk.
right, yeah, exactly. Not coming to practice, not coming to practice all, and playing in games, hard things of that nature. So you've seen a change, and it was really just the consistency of building the program. You had dedicated coaches who understood and knew one another. You didn't have that transient. These coaches just going from place to place to place. They if they weren't attempting to go be a head coach somewhere, then they were there at the program, helping it to get stronger. A name like Stan Sexton jumps out because he was with Bill D for years and then was able to take on the program and same thing. Jeremy was in the program for years and was able to take over for Stan. So you have when you have that's what I consider a legacy school. Hampton High School with Mike Smith was a legacy school. Mike Smith coached some people's grandparents. That's how long he'd been there. So everybody knew that they were going to go play for the King of Queen Street. So it's a different world. So but when you look at when you transition from our local area to the Northern Virginia area, the good councils and the Gonzagas, they will stand out because DC, right or wrong, had a lot of different things going on in those schools. I know some great guys, Coach Stewart, who was at Anacostia for many years, he dealt with a lot of different things going on in his community that he had to manage, and still be able to coach good football, and so you're going to have parents who are going to say, hey, I don't know if I want my son to play at this school because he has to walk, these blocks, so he has to walk past these guys who may be in class and may be so she's going to want to put him on city, public transportation and allow him to go to the next place. And you can't fault any parent for that. But it all speaks to a different theme, right? And some underlying themes. But at the end of the day, if people are going to have options and choices, they're going to utilize them. So, but I never want to take away from those guys, those coaches who were pillars, in their community, who worked hard to get the local community guys. I mean, if you think of our teams, we were just neighborhood kids, and we had a vision. Late Junior Slaughter, when he made that Make It Happen T-shirt, and he designed and he put that ring on the back of it. People laughed at us. They laughed at us like, who did we think we were? And they didn't realize that we were helping. We were starting a culture. We were starting the idea, the tradition of saying that this is what we were going to do. And I'm proud to say that I was a part of that, because my junior varsity team that I coached back in '99, they went on to win the first 2 state titles. So it was basically in house how we passed it on. So
that's 2001 and 2002.
Yeah. So those 2 teams. So like when I coached those guys, and they were phenomenal. They were phenomenal even when we played. Even when we were a JV team, they were. I tortured those guys, and they came back every single day, and allowed me to torture them to the point where, and we taught them a lot of football, and they got bigger, they got stronger, they got faster, and it was seamless going from junior varsity to varsity. And then they did what many people that never would have imagined Phoebus High School doing, and that's winning those state titles, and then it just and winning is contagious. So people want to be a part of those
Once you get the
programs.
recipe, it's a wrap. You get that blood. That's like a shark in the water. Once you taste
Absolutely,
blood, it's been 13 chips later. But man, we're gonna wrap this thing up, man. Man,
absolutely.
I appreciate you, man. We about to. I was just thinking, man. We about to do this debate, man. Who's the best running back in Phoebus, man? I'm gonna get a couple people from different generations, and we're gonna have this debate.
We can, but you know where my vote goes.
Yeah, me and you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But
you know where my
some of
vote
the other
goes.
guys think is some other guys. So yeah, we're gonna get this thing situated. And I'm gonna make a nice little collage of all the highlights together. So
Absolutely,
we're gonna work that out. So man, again, man, thanks for being a part of the show. We getting up
absolutely.
there. My thing is don't hate the player, hate the game. It is not our fault. And we sounding out, man.
Salute.